welcome to Lovecast the podcast reviews. I'm your host Alexa, and with me are your fellow hosts Pixie and Kayla.
Hey.
Hey.
So today we are going to be doing our review of the Japanese BL series Candy Color Paradox, or Miro Paradox as it's also known as. So this tells the story of Onoe, who is a reporter for a weekly gossip magazine. And at that magazine, he has a rival photographer who kind of is always beating him out for his cover stories, and that is Kaburagi. And so one day their bosses kind of force them to work together on a scoop. And it turns out they're a really good team together. They get the good scoops, they know what's up. So they continue to work together. And as that happens, Onoe starts to develop feelings for Kaburagi as he gets to know him. And as the story goes on, those feelings start to become more mutual. And then they kind of, get into a little situation. So it's 8 episodes of about 25 minutes each, and you can watch it on Viki, and it may also be available on Gaga Ulala as well. So yeah, Candy Color Paradox. What does everyone think about it?
I can mention too that this is based off of manga that was published in 2011. So you can go and read the manga, but since it's from 2011, be aware.
Yeah, it's on the older side.
It's not always I don't know
The greatest.
what to call it.
It's not necessarily adapted to modern times in terms of
Yes.
content.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
So my initial thoughts watching this was one of the only shows that I managed to watch in like BL. I don't want to call it a rut because it wasn't that. I was I was just I couldn't get over like the shows like Eclipse and everything. I had like an over uh going in the head, so I couldn't watch anything else. I couldn't invest in it. I've used all my energy on First and Countdown, like
You needed something that
all.
doesn't require a lot of energy to watch.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So this was like it was comfortable to watch. Like it's not a big budget show, and that comes very clearly when you watch it. It's not big budget, but I think it's very underrated for what it is. The two main characters have a great chemistry together, and they sort of make the story come alive, even though it's everything around it is sort of two-dimensional.
Yeah. I for me this one was like, I would say kind of middle of the line. Like I didn't dislike anything about it necessarily. But I also don't think anything about it necessarily gripped me. Like I was watching it last night and I kind of watched through it all in one go, and I will
Yep.
say like I enjoyed it enough to like watch it straight through. Like I watched all 8 episodes as opposed to like splitting it up between last night and today like I originally planned to do. But like when I finished it, I was like, that was fine. Like I
Yeah.
feel like that's just like how I felt about it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Um, but I think like it was just like middle of the line for me is how I would describe it. Yeah.
Yeah. I basically feel the same type of way. Like I thought it was cute. There was another BL K-pop crossover with this for me because the main guy who plays Satoshi looked super familiar to me. And I was like racking my brain trying to think where I've seen him before. And then I realized that he was a guest on this Japanese show that's hosted by Shotaro and Sungchan of NCT. And I was like, oh my
Oh.
gosh, that's what I know him from. I'm also familiar with the group that he's from.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily his subunit, but another one. So I was like, no, this is a small world. And it's really interesting to see that not just like K-pop idols, but like J-pop idols are getting into BL.
Yeah.
The pipeline just never
The
fails.
pipeline.
It's always there. It never
The pop
fails.
idol to BL pipeline is
But
everywhere.
it is. It really is. I this series, I love like the concept of it and how they basically like work for a tabloid. I'm guessing that's what it is since the
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
stories seem to be
gossip
more
magazine.
scandalous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I like how they kind of have this moral dilemma of like having to expose other people's lives to sustain their own.
Mm,
Yeah, I found that
yeah.
interesting. And I think the series does balance it well
Mm,
because there are like some heavy themes in it, but the story
yeah.
itself isn't heavy. It's
Yeah.
pretty straightforward, pretty cute. Yeah, it's not like you said, it's not a difficult watch.
Yeah, one of
Yeah.
the things that I noticed, this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler. Uh, the one time that Satoshi is going undercover with the whole phone scam thing, I found
Mm.
that very jarring. That he got angry at him for doing that, and taking down the scammer who was scamming old ladies out of their money, and that was supposed to be a moral dilemma. Dude was scamming people. Don't make me
Yeah.
feel sorry for him, like
Yeah.
literally.
And he was like, "I trusted you." I was like, "Okay, and you're a criminal, buddy."
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a little bit far-fetched to me that he got mad over that. I mean, they could have done it better. That's the moral dilemma in exposing scammers. It's not a
Yeah.
dilemma to me. Maybe in Japanese society it is, but
Yeah. I think that kind of like ties in with one of my like main quips about the show is I felt like the relationship, I don't know if timeline's the right word, but progression maybe was a little bit all over the place in the final
mm,
episodes. Like I
mm,
think like episodes 6, 7, and 8 maybe like after Kaburagi kind of like confessed and
mm,
I guess they were on the same page of like romantically liking each other. And then like in the
mm,
next episode they were talking about moving in together and
yeah,
it had been like a couple of weeks. And then the whole situation with the scammer happened and Kaburagi got mad at him and literally just like cut him off completely.
yeah,
And I was like, it was so jarring to me that like they were like, yes, we're gonna move in together, and then this one thing happened, and then he just like
side,
completely cut him off, and like I was like, is your relationship over? Did you break
yeah,
up? Were you even actually dating? Like, I felt like kind of throwing that into the last couple episodes, like it just felt a little bit all over the place to
mm,
me. And like I did like the resolution in the final episode,
yeah.
and what came together, but I felt like it just felt very extreme for one
It
to like
felt out of place.
yes, yes. So like
Mm,
they went from 0 to 100 to being like, okay, we like each other, we're gonna move in together, we're looking at apartments. And then this thing happened, and he was like, never mind, silent treatment. I have nothing to say to you. And I was like, we're going to two very large extremes here.
yeah, I mean, I understand what they were trying for. They were trying to make it seem like Kaburagi is doesn't want to corrupt
Yeah.
Satoshi, um, but it they didn't really show it in a believable way. It was too extreme.
Yeah, I think the short episodes kind of like I could have saw it being like it was a good plot, like potential conflict. That's the word I was looking for. Like the idea
Mm,
of you don't want to corrupt this person who you fell for because you like their honesty and their innocence, and seeing them become more like you like scares you and you want to protect them from that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that they just like it felt like it came out of nowhere. Like
Yeah.
the fact that he just like cut him off like that, and like, you know, like we could see why he was doing it. Like I could see where his upset was coming from, but it just felt very like choppy the way it happened. And I think like
Mm.
maybe with more episodes to kind of make
Mm.
it into an overarching plot theme or something like that would have been helpful. But like obviously Japanese BLs are always on the shorter like 8 episode side, so you know, I think it
Yeah.
suffered a little bit from that.
Am I the only one who kept noticing the tabloid covers with scantily clad women all over them and
Yes.
just thinking like,
Yes.
what the fuck?
Yes.
Why was there all these women in bikinis like all in the background? Like that was
Is
like
this
what kind of,
normal?
I thought it was like a porn magazine or something that they were
Right.
doing at first, and I was
And they're
like,
doing like all these stories about like corrupt politicians and taxes and stuff like
yeah.
that. And there's still like scantily clad women. Like I don't have a problem with women showing their bodies when they want to. But this felt very explode ex, exploitive.
Exploitative.
Yes, for
Yeah.
the just
Mm.
like for the clickbait sort of
Yeah.
in a magazine.
And I guess
And
that
can
ties
I
into
say,
it.
like, Japanese people do not care about graphic design because those tabloids look horrible.
I know they're always there's so much going on them, and like that is true to like what Japanese magazines look like. Like they're
I
so, it's just like
understand their writing
everything.
is different, that it goes down and front, like back to front,
Hmm.
but there are ways to make it look better. Like hire a graphic designer. They can
Graphic
fix it.
design is their passion.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the PowerPoint that in Semantic Error.
This PowerPoint that he makes. Yeah. The graphic
Yeah.
design department is obviously not being paid enough at that magazine.
But
Uh,
I do genuinely think that that's very Japanese because
oh yeah.
apparently
It's
they are behind on stuff like that.
yeah, it's like a lot of like what they're like a lot of the times I'll see magazine covers for like Japanese artists or idols, and like that's like, I mean, I'm sure it was somewhat exaggerated because it was a drama, but their magazine covers are very like flashy. Like that's what they go for, I think.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I do think though, I really kind of like what Kayla said. I really enjoyed the stories that they took on. Like I thought that it was surprisingly like dug into some like serious issues, like especially like the
Mm.
adult video actress and the actor who
Yeah.
was like selling people off to the
Hmm.
porn industry. Like I know
Mm.
there was a lot of controversy about the Japanese like adult video industry,
Mm-hmm.
and
There
that
is.
felt very like on the nose and like discussing that issue and making it kind of one of the longer arcs, because that the whole issue with the actor like kind of lasted for 2 episodes or so throughout the show. But even going back into like the phone
Mm.
scamming, which is a huge issue, and the tax evasion from the politician, and like
Yeah.
I thought that like I really enjoyed like the stories that they tapped into, and
Mm.
kind of some of the statements that they made with them, and as well as like the moral discussion they were having around it, as like what do you need to, like who do you need to be as a person to be able to be
Mm-hmm.
a gossip writer, and kind of this
Mm-hmm.
whole idea throughout that
Yeah.
Satoshi is too naive to do this job, and how that came back to get him in the end when he finally was
Mm-hmm.
able to do one successfully, and it like
Yeah.
caused his boyfriend to like cut him off or
Freak
whatever.
out.
So yeah, I really do like the I can't think of words today. I guess the moral, the
Mm.
themes, that's the word I'm looking for, the
Themes.
themes
Yeah.
throughout the show.
Mm.
I think like I just wish the execution, especially in the later half, was like a little bit better in terms of the
Yeah.
relationship.
I will say this, that I really appreciate them showing Japan and the darker side of it
Hmm.
because often in media and in shows and Japan is often like shown as this very clean, pure, respectful, safe place. But that's not true for any country. So it's nice to actually see the reality being shown for once, that it's
Yeah.
not perfect, and
A bit
it's
of a grittier
sort of,
look.
Japan is sort of put on a pedestal. um they've cultivated this image that just keeps going. but
Yeah.
um but yeah, I appreciate seeing all the sides, and it doesn't take away from my love of Japan. I really, really love Japan, and it's like my number one place that I want to
Dream.
go
Yeah.
visit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
Yeah. I
needs to
think
you need to see the whole
the realism is
picture, and
important. Yeah.
this at least gives you an insight to that, maybe over dramatized, but still.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Um, Oh, one thing I wanted to point out is that I really loved their bosses. I thought
Yeah.
they were so funny, and I liked their like, I don't know, just like the way like, I guess the way the actors are like back and forthing with their line
Mm,
delivery always made me laugh.
Yeah.
And like considering there wasn't really too many other recurring characters in the show, minus like his restaurant owner
bartender.
friend, yeah,
Yeah.
bartender. I really thought the bosses were really funny characters, and I enjoyed watching like whenever they would sit down and have scenes with them, or the bosses would be talking to each other. I thought they were
Yeah.
funny.
It really follows like the basic yaoi manga recipe. You have like the bartender that the main character goes to talk to get everything out. You have the two bosses that have
True,
all these
the
gay
comedic
chemistry,
bosses.
and it ends at the end of the manga. It turns out they are fucking behind a door. Like
Wait, is
it's
that for real?
Yeah, that happens a lot. There are so many spin-off shows where it's the bosses that are actually getting it.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Oh my gosh.
I
Good
bet you,
to
I haven't
know.
read the manga, but I bet you those bosses are a thing in
Yeah,
the manga.
they had vibes. They had some vibes going.
Yeah.
I feel like especially because you could tell the bosses kind of knew like that Satoshi and Kaburagi like had some vibes going on, and they were like,
Mhm.
we know
They've been
because we've
through
been there
it. They
before.
know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From experience. Oh my god.
Yeah, literally, it's such a thing that you see over and over again in yaoi, especially from like 2011 and stuff. They and usually it's like sometimes it's the boss and the brother or something like that,
Yeah.
and it's always that like the bosses have like the same story that the young ones had when they were younger, so they're just watching and being
And like,
mentors and seeing
yeah,
it all unfold.
Mm,
overseeing. Yeah.
hmm.
That's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, I definitely like
Interesting.
get those vibes from the two bosses, so I'm curious if that actually was a thing in the manga.
I need to read the manga now.
Interesting. I really love how the the blonde guy, at first you think he's like this heartless playboy type guy,
Yeah.
and then you find out that he's really doing like this deep intel to try to get dirt on people.
Yes.
I don't know, like I didn't expect it, so I thought that was a good twist. And then
Hmm.
just like even the other characters said to him, like, you're not even as cold as you seem. You just act like it because you're trying to
Hmm.
get a scoop or like a
Yeah.
bonus or something. So I
I
liked his
mean,
character a lot.
yeah. I mean, the iconic scene when Satoshi sees him smile for the first
Yeah.
time,
He's
and
Mm,
like,
he's
you know
just
how
like,
to smile?
"Ah!"
yes.
Suddenly in love, as is always happens.
He
Yeah,
fell in love in that moment.
literally. Yeah. Yeah, I liked his character too, and I liked the little tidbits they gave about like his like past kind of working in like, I don't know, is it like a host bar or like a hostess bar that the lady
I
owns? It
think
kind of gave me
so.
that vibe. of him working
Probably. It's
there, and you know what he's probably
the
learned
basic.
from working in that situation, and like the whole tidbit about how he like pays the informants with his own money and like that kind of stuff. I like the tidbits that they gave that kind of gave you like a deeper insight into what his character, yes, and sometimes his body, Heather says.
Hmm.
I guess you gotta do what you gotta do. But yeah, I do think they gave a lot of insight into his character through that and like how he views himself as like a gossip photographer and you know that kind of stuff. So I do think he was an interesting character. Does anyone have any final thoughts before we give our ratings?
I
No,
just
maybe.
my in general like feeling that I got from the show that this was comfortable, this was nice.
Yeah.
I'm not mad that I watched it, but I will probably forget about it in a week.
Yeah. Yeah. I have the same
Yeah.
feeling. I really like the theme song. That's the one last thing I wanted to
That's
say.
true.
The theme song was a
Yes,
bop. It was a
yes.
bop.
It's so
It
good.
was a bop. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree, and that's why like I think that my rating is like a solid 3 out of 5. Like it was truly just like very like right down the middle of the line for me. I
Mm,
didn't dislike it at all, aside from like my quips that I had about how some things played out, but like it's probably not going to stick in my mind for that long.
hmm. Yeah, I will give it 4 just because it gave me a reason to watch BL when I just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go with a 3 as well. Because I do think it's worth watching if you
Hmm.
have some free
Mhm.
time. There are some larger themes in it that you could pick out, but like when I watched it, I was pretty laid back.
Mhm.
The leads I think are really cute. Their chemistry is fine, and
Yeah.
I mean, it has that same level of production that all the Japanese BLs do. Just I guess a little on the cheaper side, even though I didn't notice it much. And yeah, I don't have any critiques either because I feel like it was so simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's like a
definitely a
lot to
3.
enjoy, but like it's not groundbreaking, which like not every series needs to be. Like sometimes things are just
Yeah.
nice to watch, and that's how I feel
Yeah.
about this.
Mm.
Yeah, same.
All right, then that is it for our review of Candy Color Paradox. If you're watching this when it goes up early on Patreon, let us know either in the comments on Patreon or over in the Discord what you thought about the show. If you're watching on YouTube when it goes out later, let us know in the YouTube comments. And if you're interested in getting early access to our reviews or voting for which shows we review, those are perks that are exclusive to our patrons at the Lovecaster tier and up. So that's something you can consider doing. Help us pick out what shows we review and get to see them a month earlier than the general public gets to see them. So the link to our Patreon is in the description if you're interested in that. But until our next review, we'll see you guys then. Bye bye.